Welcome back to Dusk Chapters. Dim the lights, settle in, and let the day fall away. Tonight's story is Snow White and Rose Red, an old tale of two sisters, a gentle bear, and a little grumbling dwarf, carried down to us from the hearths of long ago. Let your eyes grow heavy, and let my voice carry you gently into sleep. There was once a poor widow who lived alone in a small cottage at the edge of a deep, quiet forest. Before her door grew two rose bushes, and one of them bore roses as white as fresh fallen snow, while the other bore roses as red as the last light of evening. And the widow had two daughters, who were as like those two rose bushes as sisters could be. One was called Snow White, and one was called Rose Red, and they were the sweetest, most loving children who ever breathed the soft air of that forest. Snow White was quieter and stiller than her sister, more fond of sitting by the fire with a book or helping her mother about the house, content to watch the flames settle low and listen to the wind hum against the shutters. Rose Red loved best to run the meadows and fields, gathering flowers and chasing butterflies, singing little wandering songs to herself as she went. But though their natures were different, the two girls loved one another so dearly that they were seldom apart, and where one went, the other soon followed. And when Snow White would say, gently, "We will never leave each other," Rose Red would answer, "No, not as long as we live," and their mother would add, softly, that whatever one had, she must share with the other. They often wandered together deep into the forest, gathering red berries from the low bushes, and no harm ever came to them there, for the forest creatures knew them well and trusted them. The hare would eat cabbage leaves from their hands without fear. The deer would graze quietly beside them as they passed. The birds would stay upon their branches and sing on, undisturbed, as the sisters walked by beneath the tall old trees. And if ever the girls stayed too late among the mossy paths and the night began to settle down through the leaves, they would simply lie down together upon the soft ground, close in each other's arms, and sleep peacefully until the morning light came slanting gold and soft between the branches to wake them. And their mother, back at the little cottage, never fretted over them, for she trusted the forest to keep them safe, as it always had. Once, when they had slept the whole night through in the woods and woke at the first hush of dawn, they saw sitting near them a beautiful child in a shining white gown, who smiled at them so kindly that he seemed almost to glow among the ferns and the low morning mist, and then, without a word, he rose and slipped away silently into the trees. And when the girls looked about them, they understood that they had been sleeping at the very edge of a steep cliff and would surely have fallen in the darkness had they wandered on but a few more steps. Their mother told them, when they described the shining child, that it must have been the angel who watches over good children, and the sisters felt no fear at all in hearing it, only a quiet, settled comfort, the way one feels safe with a lamp burning low in the next room. The cottage where they lived with their mother was always kept so clean and neat that it was a joy simply to look into it. In the summer, Rose Red cared for the house, and every morning, before her mother woke, she would set a wreath of flowers by the bed for her to find. In the winter, Snow White lit the fire and hung the kettle over the flame. And though the kettle itself was only made of humble copper, she polished it so faithfully that it shone like gold in the firelight. In the evenings, when the snow drifted soft and silent against the window panes, the mother would say, "Go, Snow White," and bolt the door, and then they would all sit together by the hearth, and the mother would put on her spectacles and read aloud from a great book while the two girls sat and spun beside her, listening. Near them on the floor lay a little lamb, and behind them, perched quiet upon a low beam, a small white dove tucked its head beneath its wing, and the room was warm and full of the soft sound of the spinning wheel, and nothing troubled it at all. One evening, as they sat so cozily together, there came a knock at the door, soft and slow, as though someone leaned upon it. "Go quickly, Rose Red," said the mother, "and see who is out so late. It is likely some traveler in need of shelter." Rose Red drew back the bolt, thinking to see some poor man caught by the weather, but instead, there in the doorway, pushing his broad black head into the room, stood a bear. Rose Red cried out and stepped back. The lamb bleated, the dove fluttered on its beam, and Snow White hid herself behind her mother's bed. But the bear began to speak, and his voice was low and slow and gentle as the wind through pine boughs. And he said, "Do not be afraid. I will do you no harm. I am half frozen, and only wish to warm myself a little at your fire." "Poor bear," said the mother, "lie down by the hearth then, and take care you do not singe your coat." And she called out, "Softly, Snow White, Rose Red, come out. The bear will not hurt you. He means well by us." So the two girls crept out from their hiding places, and little by little the lamb and the dove drew near again too, and no one was afraid any longer. The bear asked them kindly to brush the snow from his fur a little, and they fetched a broom and swept him clean, and he stretched himself out before the warm fire and grumbled low and contented, the way a big kettle hums before it boils. Before long the children were quite at ease with him, and they teased him gently, pulling at his thick fur, setting their small feet upon his back, and rolling him this way and that, and even taking a hazel switch and swatting him lightly when he grumbled too loudly in mock complaint, and he only rumbled with a low, warm sound that was almost like laughter, and endured it all with the sweetest patience. And if ever they went too far, he would say, "Softly, children, spare my life. Let me live. Snow White and Rose Red, do not beat your suitor dead." And they would laugh softly and stop. When it was time for bed, the mother said to the bear, "You may lie there by the hearth all night. It is warm, and you will be sheltered from the cold and the bad weather outside." And so he stayed, and slept curled by the dying fire until morning, when the two children let him out, and he trotted away over the snow and in among the dark trees. After that night, the bear came again every evening at the same hour, and laid down by the fire, and let the children play with him as they liked, and they grew so used to his visits that the door was never bolted at night until their black friend had arrived and settled by the hearth. But when spring came and the world outside grew green again, the bear said to Snow White one morning, "Now I must go away and not come back for the whole summer." "And where are you going, dear bear?" asked Snow White gently. "I must go to the forest and guard my treasure from the wicked dwarfs," he said. "In winter, when the ground is frozen hard, they must stay below and cannot work their way through. But now that the sun has warmed and softened the earth, they will break through and come up, and whatever they find and steal away, once it is down in their dark little houses, is not easily found again." Snow White felt a small sadness at his going, and as she unbolted the door for him to leave, he caught a little upon the door latch, and a small piece of his fur tore away. And just for a moment, so brief she almost doubted her own eyes, she thought she saw a gleam of gold shining out from beneath the tear, but the bear hurried away and was soon lost among the trees, and she said nothing of it, unsure of what she had seen. Not long after, the mother sent the two girls into the forest to gather sticks for the fire. As they walked, they came upon a great fallen tree lying across their path, and near its trunk something was hopping about in the grass, though at first they could not tell what it was. Drawing closer, they saw it was a dwarf, old and wizened, with a long gray beard, and the end of that beard was caught fast in a crack of the wood, so that the poor little man hopped about like a dog on a chain, quite unable to free himself. He glared at the girls with his small red eyes and cried out, "Why do you stand there? Can you not come and help me?" "What has happened to you, little man?" asked Rose Red kindly. "Foolish, gawking goose," snapped the dwarf. "I was splitting this tree for kindling, and the wedge slipped, and now my beautiful beard is caught fast, and I cannot get free, and you silly milk-faced creatures only stand there and laugh." The girls did not laugh, but tried as hard as they could to pull his beard free. Though it would not budge, it was caught too fast. Snow White said gently that she would run and fetch some people to help, but the dwarf screeched at her, "No, no, no more people. You two are enough. Find some other way." "Do not be so impatient," said Rose Red softly, and taking her little scissors from her pocket, she snipped off the very end of his beard to free him. The moment he felt himself loose, the dwarf snatched up a sack that had been lying hidden among the tree roots, full of gold, and heaved it onto his back, muttering under his breath about clumsy creatures who go cutting a decent piece off a man's beard, before he vanished off between the rocks without so much as a word of thanks. Some while after, Snow White and Rose Red went out to catch a few fish for supper, and as they came near the brook, they saw something like a great grasshopper hopping toward the water's edge, as though it meant to jump in. They hurried over and found it was the same dwarf again. "Where are you off to?" said Rose Red. "You surely do not mean to jump in the water." "Not such a fool as that," the little man cried. "Can you not see? The wretched fish means to pull me in." He had been sitting there fishing, and the wind had tangled his beard together with his line, and just then a large fish took the bait and pulled, and the little creature had no strength to resist it, and was dragged along toward the water, clutching at every reed and blade of grass, but with little use. The girls arrived just in time and tried gently to untangle his beard from the line, but the two were twisted fast together, and so once again Rose Red took out her little scissors and snipped off a small piece of his beard to set him free. When the dwarf saw what she had done, he scolded her again, crying that this was ruining his face, and snatching up a bag of pearls that lay among the reeds, he slipped away and was gone behind a stone before another word could be said. Not long after that, the mother sent the girls to town to buy needles and thread and ribbon and lace. Their path crossed a stretch of open moorland scattered with great boulders, and as they went, they saw a large bird circling above, low and slow, and then dropping suddenly toward the ground not far ahead. A pitiful shriek followed, and running to see, the girls found that an eagle had seized the little dwarf and was even now lifting him from the ground, meaning to carry him off. Tender-hearted as they were, the girls took firm hold of the little man and held on, pulling gently against the great bird until at last it let go of its prey and flew off over the rocks. When the dwarf had recovered a little from his fright, he screeched at them in his thin, cracked voice, "Could you not have handled me more gently? Look, you have torn my little coat all to pieces, clumsy, awkward things that you are," and gathering up a sack of precious stones that had spilled out near a cleft in the rock, he slipped away underneath, grumbling still, leaving the girls quite used by now to no thanks at all. The two sisters went on and finished their errands in the town, and on their way home, as the light was turning soft and golden with the approach of evening, they crossed the same stretch of moorland again and came upon the dwarf a fourth time. He had emptied his sack of precious stones out upon a clear patch of ground, thinking no one would pass by so late, and the evening sun caught the stones and made them glimmer and flash in so many colors that the girls stopped quietly to admire them. "What are you standing there gaping for?" screeched the dwarf, his face turning an angry, thin red, and just as he said it, a great black shape came shuffling out from among the trees behind him. It was the bear. The dwarf sprang up in fright, but he had no time to reach his hiding place before the bear was upon him, and he cried out in a voice gone suddenly soft and pleading, "Dear bear, spare me. I will give you all my treasure, all these beautiful jewels, Only let me live. What use would such a scrawny little fellow be to you? You would not even feel me between your teeth. Take those two wicked girls instead. They are plump and tender. Eat them, for pity's sake, and let me go." But the bear paid his pleading no mind at all, and with one gentle, unhurried paw, he simply pressed the wicked little grumbler still, and he did not move again. The girls, frightened despite themselves at the suddenness of it, had already begun to run, but the bear called after them, softly, "Snow White, Rose Red, do not be afraid. Wait, and let me come with you." And they knew his voice at once and stopped. And as he came close, his rough bear coat suddenly fell away from him like an old, worn cloak sliding to the ground. And there before them stood a young man, dressed all in gold, tall and fair. And he told them gently that he was a king's son, who had been enchanted by that wicked dwarf, who had stolen his treasure and turned him into a bear to wander the forest until the dwarf's own death should set him free. And now, he said, the dwarf had received the fitting reward for his wickedness, and the young prince was himself again. Snow White, in time, was married to him, and Rose Red to his brother, and they shared between them all that great treasure the dwarf had hoarded so jealously in his dark little home under the stones. And their old mother came to live with them in the fine new home, in peace and great happiness for many long years after. And she brought with her, when she came, the two rose bushes from before her cottage door, and she planted them just outside her window. And every single year, without fail, one bore roses as white as snow, and the other bore roses as red as the rose of evening, blooming on quietly, side by side, exactly as the two sisters always had. And that is where we leave them, in that soft golden hour of a story ending well, with roses at the window, and everyone gathered safe beneath one roof. Thank you for spending this quiet hour with Dusk Chapters. Let your breathing slow now, let your shoulders soften into the pillow, and let sleep come find you, gently, the way evening light finds a window. Good night, dear listener. Rest well, and come back soon for our next chapter.